The visitors, when they come in, they're still asking me when they see me, says, "What are you all building out there?" And I've been telling them what we're building out there, but it's also a way to catch them up in this series of homilies. What are we building out there? And we've been talking about in the first Sunday of Lent that we're not just building a building, but that building is being built for our mission. And there is a temptation, as we said, along with Jesus, to forget your mission. Jesus was tempted to forget his mission as a Savior by the devil and to concentrate on power and honor and sensuality, in those temptations. We're maybe tempted to get caught up in the tasks of being a parish. That we have to have this program or that program, or we have to do that building, or we have to do that fundraising. And our mission is to be disciples who make disciples, to be so transformed by the message of Jesus Christ that we just have to share it with others. In the second week of this series, we talked about going outside of our comfort zone, along with Abraham. That Abraham was invited by God to leave his father's house, to leave his father's country, and go to a land he didn't know. And that the kind of parish we're inviting people to do is, it's so easy to get into your comfort zone. It's so easy to just kind of do the same thing one after another and never grow in the faith. And so we're invited to get outside of our comfort zone so that we grow in our love for God. God wants to take us deeper and deeper. He loves us where we are, but he's not satisfied to leave us there. He wants to take us deeper and deeper in love with him. And last week we talked about Moses, that as part of this invitation for God, the kind of church that we're building is a church of service. And God is inviting us to join us in the adventure of what he wants for the world. But God doesn't use us up like people in this world. People in this world use you up, and you're just tired after you've done all sorts of service. But like the burning bush, when he invites us to service, he enlightens us. He illumines us, but he never uses us up. The bush was a fire, but it was not consumed. And this week, you may have been asking yourself, well, I wonder what we're building out there. For those of you who are awake enough to see, there's now a bell tower out there. There's big steel, 30 feet high. And if you didn't see it, you were pretty sleepy when you came in. And so, yes, we're building a bell tower, but we have to remember that what the readings today really talk to us about what bell towers do. You didn't realize that, but I'm going to show you how it's true. When I was in Rome, I would occasionally be able to go back and just kind of rest in my room and read on a Sunday retreat day, and you would be able to hear about 3 different bells calling people to Mass from my room at the North American College. And that's what bells are supposed to be doing. We have bell towers. We're not going to have the bells in there. Haven't been given yet. But that's what bells do. They call people to the community. They call people to the liturgy. They call people to celebrate. Now, in the first reading today, the people were called to celebrate because they had been out in the desert for 40 years, and they had been living on God's care. It had been very difficult for them. But now they come into the promised land, and they eat the fruit of the land, and now they no longer need the manna, so the manna goes away. I want to tell a story about bells and about calling people to celebration. During World War II, in Nagasaki, when the atomic bomb dropped, there was a doctor, a Catholic doctor, who was part of the community, and in fact his cause is up for sainthood. He had earlier been a soldier. In 1933, he had served in Manchuria, and at that time he was an atheist. His name was Takashi Nagi. And Takashi was so disgusted by what he saw was happening in the in Japanese Manchuria that he resigned from the army, and he was just so depressed as an atheist, but he found a good Catholic girl. Midori was her name. And they married, and he became Catholic. And he became, in the Catholic community of Nagasaki, it was a hotbed of anti-war sentiment in Japan. It was a place where the Christian, especially the Christian community, was praying for a peaceful end of the war. Well, when the American crew came over Nagasaki, they actually did not mean, that was not the primary target. They were actually going for another town, but that was filled with cloud cover. And so when they hit Nagasaki, the bomb, they estimated it exploded almost directly over the Catholic cathedral in Nagasaki, basically obliterating it. But it was about 700 yards from where Takashi was, and he survived the blast. He became a doctor that helped treat, of all things, radiation cases. And he was injured in the blast. He had a piece of glass that went into his arterial artery, but he was able to to do the work himself to stop him from bleeding. And then he went home to see how his wife was, and she had been caught in the blast, and all he could find were bones and her rosary that she apparently was praying at that time. To get an idea of the devastation of Nagasaki, there were over 70,000 people who lost their lives that day, and the American casualty rate in the whole Pacific Theater was 106,000 during the whole course of the war. So just kind of get a idea of the devastation. Well, Takashi immediately started helping the survivors. He was so respected that for a memorial service, a memorial mass for the survivors, he was asked to speak. And at that memorial mass, he said something that is just extraordinary. He said, "It was not the American crew that targeted Nagasaki. It was God's providence that it hit Nagasaki, a place where Christians had been persecuted for over 300 years, so that the Christian community might be an unblemished sacrifice to pay for the sins of all the nations during World War II." The people were kind of in shock that he was saying this, but he went on. He says, this Christian community became this redemptive sacrifice because it was so tied to the emperor stopping the war, and that God was using their sacrifice to bring about healing in the war. That's a very difficult thing to say. But the idea of redemptive love was difficult when Jesus talked about it, and it's difficult for us to think about today. The whole parable of the prodigal son, and we know that that has the wrong title. It's not the parable of the prodigal son. It's the parable of the forgiving father. The whole parable of the forgiving father is a parable about redemptive love. Think about what the son said to the father. He says, "You would be better off dead to me. So I'll tell you what, let's treat our relationship as if you're dead and give me what comes in the will. And then we don't have to do anything with one another. I'll leave." You know, if you would treat your father like that, especially in that particular culture, you would be attacking his honor. And honor was the key virtue in that society, in the society in which Jesus grew up. To attack someone's honor was almost unforgivable. And yet, when the son goes away, what does the father do? He watches, he waits, he looks for any movement so that he can restore his son. And still, when he's a long way off, he runs towards him. Now, how long has it been since you've been jogging? Quite a while, right? But this man gives up all of his dignity. He's ready to be humiliated before everyone to go and embrace and restore his son. That's what redemptive suffering is about. To give up everything to reconcile love. Now, he still is not done in terms of this sacrifice. His oldest son doesn't want to forgive. And he wants to be on the outside, and the father goes out to him. He shouldn't have to do that, right? But again, he sacrifices his dignity and says, "Son, everything I have is yours. But this brother of yours was lost, and now he's found. He was dead and has been brought back to life." See, our mission, by being forgiven ourselves, is to take on the Father's love. It's to take on this way of forgiving other people, to do it in a sacrificing, in a redemptive love kind of way. We have this celebration that we celebrate here amidst all the sorrows of our life. And by the way, to go back to Takashi and how it plays a role with our bell tower, for Christmas of that year, after the attack on Nagasaki, he was determined that they were going to celebrate Christmas. And you might say, with 70,000 dead and all of those people going, and he himself would die of radiation poison himself. He would be in bed starting in 1946, and he would die by 1951. But they unearthed the bell of the cathedral that had been incinerated. They took it and started to place it up on a tripod on the hill so that they could call people to Christmas celebration. And Takashi said, "An atom bomb will not stop the bell of God." You are the bell of God. We might not have bells in our towers, but you are the bell of God. By living out redemptive love, by looking at how we are building up a church who are being forgiven, we go out and call other people to that experience as well, that they can experience the mercy of God. You want to know why the readings tell you you're a bell? Get ready for it. It says, we are the ambassadors of God, St. Paul said. And get ready to groan. Is as if God were appealing through us. I know, it's bad. But it's still true that God is pealing through us, calling other people to this experience of faith. And so this is my challenge to you. It says we are a new creation, and we believe that because we're a new creation, because of the death and resurrection of Jesus, it matters if other people experience it. So my challenge is this to you. This Easter, invite somebody else to come with you to Mass. Go out of your comfort zone. Allow yourself to be a servant of God. Don't forget your primary mission, to call other people to the Lord. And invite somebody to come with you this Easter to experience the merciful power of God. Nothing can stop the bell of God. Don't let your fear, don't let your uncomfortability stop you from becoming that bell that calls others to the Lord.